I was trained and studied about the Look and Life magazine photographers. And so I had bought some old strobes, and I literally came in that day and strung them up, just to light and just working. And so it was just really real fortunate. I just happened to be the right place with the right camera, and was able to get the lights to work and made that picture, And so to me, it was just being faithful to the situation and to the moment, and bringing all my resources to that. And I kind of did that with at the Chronicle. I was sometimes, so Ben, you're working the story too much. And the other thing was, Ben, this wasn't the story we sent you for. And so my editor said, and I have some. I'm so pleased to see some coworkers here.
Did we bust him?
Huh?
Did we out him?
Oh no, it's okay. It's all right. And I think I started there when I was 23, so I was really young. I was like 10 years younger than anyone else on staff, and I just kind of morphed on them, and I think it just kind of freaked them out. There were some serious adults that ran into the
Well, as many times as I saw your pictures on the front cover of the paper for other things, I suspect that they appreciated the work and put up with the other, and, in the hopes that, hey, at some point you're going to stumble upon, something that, we might actually want to run. Okay, you're the new guy. What made you want to go this way, and what brought you to Ben DeSoto's store? I mean, excellent job, by the way.
Thank you. Actually, I didn't know this. This is his first work, and I'm just like, I'm so honored that he has his resources, his talent focused on my work and celebrating it. When I left in 2016, as he started the interviews, I was in a health situation, and I had to kind of step away. So I'm so blessed. I really feel like he's an answer to prayer to allow me to make my work continue its service.
Never be your own editor. So again, new guys.
It was actually 2014 that I reached out to him.
Yeah.
So my original idea was I wanted to do just a small little 5-minute internet video of Ben DeSoto and him kind of reflecting back on these images of DJ Screw, because 2015 would have been the 20-year anniversary of these photos. So I found his name attached to the publication, the Rap Pages article, and reached out, pitched him my idea. He was about it, and this was 2014, I think, during the Photo Fest.
Yeah.
So we met at like this warehouse, and we just walked in thinking, okay, we'll just get footage. It'll be a quick interview. We'll do some cool editing, and we just really connected. There was this instant connection between the three of us. My other partner, Andrew Benavides, the co-director. And
similar story. He just walks in and
more stories that he shared with us, and then we got some extra footage with the chest box coming down. And I think once he opened that, then we were kind of just like, you know what?
It was on.
Is not enough.
It was on. Yeah, I caught that. In the film.
Yeah.
It's Pandora's box, or the ultimate treasure chest. Type of thing.
Well, I am known to get chatty when I get excited.
Tiny bit. Anyone who knows Ben knows that he's not lost for words, which is ironic, is he's a photographer that has a different level of communication. I guess Ben, what of your various areas of interest are still today something that you feel that you need to complete or work on, or what are your new projects? Do you have any, or are you just living the good life up there in Utah and not giving a shit?
I don't know how many people. University of Houston sociology professor Bill Simon. I don't know if any people know. Brilliant man, and was something of a mentor, and worked with me when I was doing a lot of documentary work in Allen Parkway Village, the 4th Ward. And he came with he had to attend one of those mandatory stress reduction meetings at the university, and he was a known smart aleck, and so he let the question answer, and he says, I have a theme for you that fits what you're trying to accomplish. And I said, what's that, Professor Simon? Reduce stress, care less. And so my variation is that I had to kind of step back, but it's still at my heart, and I appreciate the offer to talk about that. And Witness and I talk about this. While I do appreciate the celebration of my music work and that recognition, but I had left in 2016 undone Poverty Solutions documentary work, and it's such as my nature, I also do coupling, so something real heavy, something real light. And I was in progress creating a documentary, Nights of the Island, about the early, my early pictures. But we had a great fan on the street interviews. We had a 2012 reunion, so I had photographs of the Mydolls from, 32 years before, and then we had the video production, and so I had to kind of step things back. So my prayer is that these would somehow, resources come and complete these, and it's just nice to have a completion, but more importantly, the Poverty Solutions is really necessary, needed. Again, as George said in the documentary, he said, it was the Reagan years. Yeah. Yeah.
It was the Reagan years.
Yeah,
welcome to what they get.
Yeah, and I feel for a lot of us punk rockers that the Reagan years gave us good training to kind of deal with the Trump years.
We knew. We knew this was coming. Just didn't stop it.
And in every, it seems like every 3 or 4 generations, we all have to kind of get up and go, no, that's not how we're going to try to live. And we kind of have to kind of fight the power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And concluding is that, my family started during the Great Depression. I was a change of life kid. I had 2 brothers that were graduated high school by the time I was born. So, and the family started during the Depression. And so, in the 80s, when I saw the level of homelessness that I hadn't seen since the Great Depression, it bothered me. And as a professionally trained curious mind, by '88, I was really bothered by the depth of homelessness we were dealing with. And that made my commitment to work further with that. But the punk rock music kind of gave voice to my feelings that something's not right, And I really appreciate the musicians for that. And then for the rap and hip hop, as I started doing my documentary work, I made friends with a homeless guy named Ben White, and he grew up in Sunnyside. And I was taking pictures of Ben in prison. And then like 6 months later, I took pictures of Scarface and the Ghetto Boys, and he grew up in the same neighborhood, and found what the Ghetto Boys were singing about. Ben was living, and I always coupled those two, and they kind of, in my mind, were connected. And we're finding the arts giving expression to what we were experiencing. And so for art's sake, I always thought it was a really kind of I was an animated bowl of fruit to these people. They don't know the work. They were able to do more of my materials in 3 years than I was able to do, other than shoot it, than I could do over the past 10 years. So I really profoundly appreciate them very much.
One thing I respect so much about Ben is the fact that I've seen him go out there and give so much up to get the shots and to get the story out. Like to go up with the water protectors in the winter time and just, lead this simple life so that he could spend time on the streets and do the photography and show what it was like to live homeless. And he had to be there with these folks to get that done. And so the sacrifices that he would make to get the story out because of his passion for that story is something that I greatly admire and respect.
You don't know this guy? This is Carlos. He's Carlos. You worked a lot with the underprivileged and the oppressed. Has your path ever crossed path with Ben DeSoto?
Well, yeah, I grew up with him in
I figured.
In Civil Gardens, Pasadena. There's some people here from that time. What amazes me is that we came out of an incredible societal time where we were Mexican Americans living in Pasadena, and we were kind of not really aware of what was out there. You know, we were basically kept down in a way. And I went to Sam Rayburn, you went to Sam Rayburn. I studied photojournalism at San Jacinto College like you did. How were you able to get beyond that and think, well, wow, there's a giant world out here, and I wanna learn it and I wanna be part of it. I mean, what was your awakening like? Is what I guess I'm trying to say.
So, like I said, I did grow up locally and worked at Pasadena Citizen. Went to the University of Houston. Ken Covey was a photojournalism teacher there, and really laid a good foundation for me to approach the work as a career. Ann Tucker is another professor I embrace because she taught me art history, so she allowed me to put myself in context of my work. And I just love taking pictures, and I was, again, I had to make a decision when I was 19 to whether to go into the ministry of Southern Baptist Christianity or continue my photojournalism, and I chose to go to photography because I enjoyed it more. But I think in hindsight that those prayers and that mindfulness that I was raised up as a Christian continued, it was the foundation of my work, you know, as in justice. And, you know, so I wasn't, so that kind of fundamentalist upbringing, you know, so I wasn't dating or drinking or socializing, you know, and literally it was after I was literally finished with college and that internship that I was exposed to this wide world, and it was just like like you said, Pasadena was like, there's a whole world out there, you know, and they're willing to pay me to take pictures of it, you know.
Dog, best of both worlds, you know. You got a better offer than I did. Bill Hicks asked me when we originally I started working for the Island if I wanted to be his beer bar manager. But it was, you know, probably doing $300 a night at the main bar. So your offer was much better. You know, in addition to the music, you also, I know, we're embedded in the art community, which, you know, the Mydolls also come out of. And
Yeah.
I passed her on to one of our local artists, and what were your recollections, or did your paths cross?
Well, I first met Ben when he started shooting here in town, and our paths crossed at the Consolidated Arts Warehouse, where it went sort of punkers. But I heard the Mydolls never played there. And then off and on we saw each other and stuff. And then when Ben moved into Consolidated Arts Warehouse, that was a big adventure for him too. And we got to know each other better, sort of surviving down there. But I've been a big admirer of Ben, and he's always been a happy person. Even when it's been really cruddy for him.
I guess I kept that sadness a little too much to myself. Yes.
In addition to the Island, of course, there were other places that were listed, and one that missed out was Ralph's Ice House. Ralph Aldrich, and that for many of us was that's a nice place, man. You know, while working in the industry as we did and stuff, that was a place that we called home and enjoyed. Do you remember when you first met Ben? And
he was
just a troublemaker.
he come in and took some pictures and knew the people in the bands and everything. I know one time he took I think Frank Motley brought X in and Dave Alvin, and he took a great shot of them standing in front of my deli case and had the reflection of some of the neon in it. I thought one of the best shots ever made in that place. I thought it was an awesome picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I've admired his work, and everything he did. I saw an exhibit he had of the homeless people and stuff one time. And I was really impressed, because it was a side of Ben that I wasn't aware of, that he was, involved in doing this, social documentary.
His secret life, which turns
Yeah.
out we were his secret life. You know, we thought we were, you know, the deal.
Yeah.
Some of the art ladies back there. Hi,
Hi.
Ben
Hi,
and
Ben.
Morrison.
Hi. I just been curious all these years, Ben, about how much the Chronicle was a part of giving you the stories about, like those young ladies out on the prostitutes story that you did, or the homeless people. I mean, what would you say the percentage was that was sanctioned by the Chronicle, and what was the percentage that you did completely on your own? And number two, my second question is, did you ever bring stuff in and convince them to do a story?
That's a good question. Did you ever start
Oh,
these stories?
Okay, so self-assignment or stories that I generated as ideas, I would probably say maybe like 70-30. Like all the stuff out of the 4th Ward and 5th Ward that you saw at the beginning, I just treat them as beats because I had to cut through these neighborhoods to get to downtown on assignment, so they became a regular part of the routine. And like I said, by 1988, I was kind of really bothered by the level of homelessness, and so as I began to do my research, like for example, Ben White, I met on July 4th, 1988, and public park, public event, and he was a guy who had a balloon tied to his shopping cart. So the very first picture I have of this guy is this overall shot in this park, and here's the shopping cart with a balloon, and they're digging through the trash as you know people were throwing trash away. And then I came up and did a tight little portrait of him, and it's just I consider it just divine fortune that we were able to maintain contact over the 30 years. And so that was the assignment that I generated. Judy Pruitt again was someone I met in 1988, and started that. So I literally worked on Judy's first story for about 3 years before I got it published. And then when Ben White, it took a little bit longer. But all the stuff about I was looking at 4th Ward, an emancipation community that established after the Civil War, and 5th Ward, seeing what was happening. I wasn't completely cognizant of all the things that were going on at the time, but I saw there was the story of a tale of gentrification, a tale of two neighborhoods. And while the 4th Ward was on prime piece of real estate, the 5th Ward was they backed off on it. And there were some resources at the community itself. So like the kids playing baseball, that was the first time they had Little League in 20 years. You know, I'm just kind of like hanging out and said, oh, what's going on? Oh, we're starting up a Little League, really? I said, yeah, and I said, well, that's a great story. And then I just kept on working and generating a lot of little stories. So I would say I was constantly bothering them to take in stuff like I said,
Expand the horizons, right?
Yeah, it was. It just kind of like it just seemed like the right thing to do, you know.
And fortunately, from time to time, they agreed. This lady here has a question.
Yes,
Hey, Lisa.
Ben, I just want to thank you for letting me tag along for the last 10 years. I've learned so much from you, and you really inspired me and helped me shape my own creativity. And I think that you're a true teacher, artist, activist, and I've learned so much from you, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful. And I also am grateful to Witness and Andrew for coming in and shaping and crafting and everything that they did.
So I do want to share one little story. Lee, strong connection, public news, Commerce Street Artist Warehouse was starting up, and it was a real kind of
Lots
mess.
of those folks, yeah.
Yeah, and so they said that there was an artist going to start up the Commerce Street Artist Warehouse, and so I said, do you want to do this? And so I rolled over there, and they gathered up all these artists. So it's like a who's who of, you know, at Seesaw. And Benner was part of that group shot, you know, Rick Lowe's part of that, several other people, and I feel embarrassed if I try naming names and I'll forget them. But there was this great shot, and it wasn't for the Chronicle. It was under the Chronicle's radar, but it was a cover of Public News.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was always appreciating catching those opportunities and kind of reading through that, you know. So I was,
Yeah, Wes Hicks was in it,
Yeah.
and Dr. Bob.
Dr. Bob.
Campbell.
Deborah Moore, right?
Deborah Moore was in it, and John Calloway,
and
and his
then,
assistant Dan the Man.
yeah, and then Bean Orlando
Yeah,
or
well,
the
there
poet.
was a friend of Jack Massing's
Yeah.
that hung out there.
And Jack as well, yeah.
I can't remember
So
his
part of the art
That's
guys,
right.
yeah. So you know, so that was joyous for me
It was, I mean.
because I got to climb a ladder because I was looking at just kind of working the story, and there's this big skylight, and so there's this beautiful pool of light, and so I was forcing them to drag stuff around to kind of follow the light as we were working, only about like an hour, and you know, climbed a 25-foot ladder to take a picture. Any excuse to get off the ground was was, you know, it's always, you know, perspective.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just want to say, Ben, I just want to, I had an opportunity to work with you at the Community Artists Collective, and when you worked at the Houston Center for Photography, and that's when I became aware of you, because I didn't know about you and the pump stuff and all of that. I wasn't, you know, involved in, but I was always very impressed by your passion for teaching photography to kids. And as a result of that, I became, I myself was influenced because after meeting you and working with you at the collective, I worked for Harris County Juvenile Probation Department. And we did a lot of stuff, not necessarily photography because we had to worry about kids and confidentiality, but other artistic forms, working with those kids, and your passion really enabled me to work with them. So thank you.
So in '88, I started doing this documentary work in earnest with homelessness, but I also felt a sense of giving back. So, Santa Claus, you're wearing a t-shirt, show off the t-shirt. Carlos, show the t-shirt, show off the t-shirt. Santa Claus. Santa Claus. Okay, so I met Richard Reyes in '84, and so by '88, again, there was kind of this mindfulness, wanting to, you know, drill down deeper. And so he gave me the opportunity to start a community darkrooms and working with Houston Center for Photography, Direct Exposure. We had 6 working darkrooms in the inner city that we worked through the 90s. And worked with kids out on Parkway, worked out at Fifth Ward in Richmond, Community Arts Collective, and never did some little bit of work with Mecca, you know, so I kind of worked all the little inner city neighbors and had these darkrooms, you know. And so that's, it was always part of my my ideas and, you know, responsible community contribution. So teaching, you know, was my passion, that scientific magic. I wanted to share that, and so we kept on. And then when darkness went away, I just kind of we migrated over to computer labs and did stuff. And
Well, that magic has spread.
Yeah,
You don't
good.
know how far that magic has spread.
There's one last question here in the back.
I don't think I slept as a, you know, all this time. I think I've had very poor sleeping habits. Just all the level of work and all the activity.
Just one question
It blows me away.
before she speaks is, how old were you when you went through that cathartic moment of the whole darkroom experience?
16.
16. Mine was in the 6th grade.
Yeah.
And he's right. If you are a photographer from the analog age, it's that moment of seeing that come out in the water. There is absolutely nothing like it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Ben.
Hey.
I was curious what were your favorite cameras when you were shooting?
Ooh, there's some good ones. You gonna do analog and digital, or just digital, because it's
Well, actually,
2019 and all?
the optics was involved. So I was
There you go.
foundation of 35 millimeter culture, and kind of grew up in that. So the miniature cameras, and so we look at Cartier-Bresson as kind of our touchstone. And he worked with a wide angle, the telephoto, and working the two camera system, a lot of that movement. And once you get familiar with how the camera sees, and then you get into work. I also, so the idea is to kind of be available, you know, there's and just to really kind of this mindful that when I teach, this is this beautiful thing that we as photographers are alchemists, because we're taking fractions of time, and we're taking three-dimensional space, and we're capturing human emotion, and we're putting it all down in like a 16th of a space. And how do we do that? By the quality and integrity of our ability to capture light and capture the moment. You know, so like I said, this is the man that we sat around, you know, hanging out and just kind of articulating, because the photographer is on his own right. And the must of it was kind of like these, kind of getting a handle on this and recognizing the work of Paul Strand, recognizing the work of Cartier-Bresson, the decisive moment, and these pieces here, you know, drawn on that, and the must of it being kind of like the fourth quality would make a picture great, because we sat around for many hours looking at Pulitzer Prize winning photographs and going, what, you know,
Damn,
what
I
made
didn't
the
take
picture
that
work?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but sitting there going, well, you know, it's the light, it's the must of it. You know, it's a terrible picture, the exposure's off, composition, but it was the must of it. That's after many nights of hanging out that we came to that decision. It was always something that was at the foundation of my teaching opportunities that I would have. You know, and crystallized now with this idea that citizen journalism and empowered witness. You know, and today, it's like when I work with kids today, I said, you know, today's technology photography is so wonderful, because today we have the power to take a picture that can prove a truth, right or wrong, even save a life. The only limitations are our mastery of a craft and the strength to take the picture when it needs to be done. You know?
Not taken away from the digital age, like you're saying. I too embrace this, and not all photographers from our era, you know, agree that content is king now. You know, the craft is much less of a factor, and I think that's a huge blessing. To be able to capture that truth, whereas back in the day,
It was hard.
you know, it was technically hard and frequently impossible. You know, you'd run, oh, if I had these big honker freaking flashes or something, you know, maybe you could light a situation where now, pull it out of your pocket and boom, and golly, I'm
But
excited.
look at Matthew Brady. I mean, he was limited, the mastery of the craft. He was limited, long exposures. So if something was moving, you know, it wouldn't show up. And so he did the best of what he could. And so, you know, occasionally that would mean dragging a dead soldier's body to improve the composition, you know, and making those choices, you know, in the composition. And those pictures inform our knowledge. Not just a hearsay, not just emotional truth of an experience, but there's a certain given about the integrity of photography. No one yells at you and goes, hey, what are you sketching? If you're out on the public street, they go, what are you photographing? Because of the power of the photograph. And as a photojournalist, that was always something that was very, that was really always at the core, to be impeccable in that. So there's no question, no, you know, photoshopping and other things like this, because the truth needed to be there. It was very interesting to note that in Pulitzer Prize, there's been at least 3 instances where there were photographers standing side by side with only just a fraction of a second in between their photographs, and one won an award and the other one was almost. And it's the moment, that quality of capturing that moment, you know, that it was. So I had a compression responsibility with the photographs, and they're kind of that, someone came up and complimented me that they could see the photographs, and they liked my pictures because it got them there, it made them the store.
3 words.
Yeah.
Get the shot.
Yeah.
It's just that
And get it back on time.
there's always that. There's always that. I'm sure you're much better at that than I ever was. On behalf of the Houston Cinema Arts Festival, the Hispanic Cinema Arts Festival, the filmmakers, and our guests, thank you so much for taking